Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
I told Courtney I was ready, and then I went to speak, and my microphone was very far away. So I had to lean into it and then scoot it back to me.
Well, when we opened the Zoom, I went to talk and realized that I had put my mic like on the edge of the table, turned around. And I was like, I didn't
Oh,
even like pretend to get my microphone set. I just plugged it in and hoped for the
yep.
best.
You're like, nope, I'm not. I mean, it can't be as bad as the time mine was completely turned around and we
For like
recorded an
half an
entire
episode.
episode.
Yeah. Who lets us have a podcast? Who
I
who
know
lets us?
who
I mean,
who
it's
condoned
free
this.
to you. Not to us, but
Oh man. Yeah, so I guess we call the shots. We let us have a podcast. Courtney,
yeah.
we decided
We
this.
decided we paid for the
Yes.
the the Buzzsprout.
Yes.
I don't know where I was going. Guys, I'm so brain dead this week. It's just
Same.
been like allergies. I had to travel for work and like I don't know. It's just I literally like last night just kind of like stared at the wall for a
Just
bit.
trying to decompress for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It
There was a
was
solar eclipse this week, so that was
true.
exciting.
We didn't get raptured. I know a lot of you thought that was
Yep.
going to happen, or everyone here is a terrible person.
That's true. Like, well, we're still here, but
There's like 10 people in the world who got taken up. The rest of
he's like,
us,
I ain't messing with none of the rest of y'all. You could just stay down
y'all
there.
thought you were great. You were not.
Yeah, so maybe that is what happened. But either way, we are still here. And if you're listening to us, I'm assuming you're still here because I don't think they have podcasts there. So
I hope you didn't burn your retinas. I hope you wore your glasses. I see
yes.
you were in the path.
It
But
was
yeah.
very cloudy here, so unfortunately we did not get to see a lot, so that was sad. But we did get to have a little, neighborhood block party because everyone came out of their
Hmm.
house at the same time just to see if we saw anything. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Always a fun thing. And yeah. Wow, I'm just
I
nailing it on
know.
this banter today. I just
We are on it. I also have a teddy bear that's like sitting behind my computer on the desk, and it's just like I'm gonna send Courtney a picture when we finish, but it's literally just like staring at me the whole time I'm talking, so I keep like I feel like I'm like telling him a story.
I
So I'm
know.
just
Cover his ears for this story. It's a sad one.
yeah, he probably
Teddy
does
doesn't
not
need
need
to
to
hear
hear this
this.
one. No. So yeah, I guess since Courtney and I apparently have nothing else to say after talking for
I
an
mean,
hour.
I will say, guys, we talked for an hour before this. So,
But in our
yeah.
defense, we're a day late recording, so I mean that's a whole other
Hmm.
day's worth of stuff to talk about. And I don't think we've talked a whole lot since the last time we recorded because I didn't see you this weekend. So,
Mm-mm. I haven't been
it
seeing you a lot lately, so we need to
yeah.
like fix that because I've had something for you for like 3 weeks now,
Oh,
and I forgot it the one time I did see you, but I'll bring it Friday though.
yes, I was gonna say I need that before Saturday, so I was gonna say I could come pick it up. But yes, I'm gonna see you on Friday. See, I'm gonna see you in 2 days. It's gonna
Two
be great.
days. Yes.
Speaking of that, that's our book club night, and we are doing everyone's bringing a snack that starts with the same letter as their first name. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna make a jalapeno dip. So I found one, and I'm I'm not a cook. If anyone listening does not know that by now, my husband does all of our cooking. So I found a recipe that I was like, oh, I think this is like simple enough. Like I can handle this. But I sent it to him because I'm like, it involves a food processor, so like I might need some help. Like like you
Yeah.
text your mom, be like, can you help me make this for school? And I was like, hey, this looks easy enough. Like, can you help me make this? And he was like, yeah, no problem. But I'm not going to make it like that. I'm going to make it better. And I was like, okay, well, like, you just do your thing, I guess.
Yeah. You just do it. Yeah. I'm doing a charcuterie board.
Yes.
So I need to get the meat for it because the store I went to, they usually have a lot of meat selections and they
Hmm.
had like none. But I
Oh,
have all
that's
my
sad.
cheese and my fruit and my crackers.
Oh,
So
nice. I'm
I'm very
excited.
excited. It's gonna be hopefully good. And I even, you know what? Reminds me I need to check the mail. I even bought little toothpicks that have the little sticks so I
Oh,
can write what each cheese is. I'm going to be bringing all of the container wrappers with me for everything so
smart.
that people can check for allergies
Yep.
for it and make sure that they can eat it. I'm doing my fucking due diligence.
I love that. That is beautiful. I think more people need to do that because, yeah, how many times are you at a potluck where you're just like, I don't know what the hell this is or what's in it? And especially if you have like food allergies, intolerances, whatever, like, well, I don't even know. And then you have to like track down like who made it and ask what's in it.
And
So
with
that is
cheeses,
lovely.
once I cut them
Yeah.
up, I'm not gonna remember. I don't remember. I mean, I'll know which ones, like some of them, but am I gonna
Yeah.
know which one's the Gouda and which one's the jalapeno Havarti? I
I
don't
mean,
know if
probably not till you take a bite and then you'll know real
I am.
quick, but
Yeah, probably.
so yeah, I think we're just going to go ahead and jump into today's episode. Our sources were a book called The Murder of Thora Chamberlain, a shocking true crime story by Rod Cackley, and also an article from thecharlieproject.org. When 14-year-old Thora Chamberlain went missing, her friends and family searched tirelessly. The FBI soon got involved to try and find Thora alive, but instead it led them on a crazy chase. On November 2nd, 1945, a waitress named Sally was getting weary of this guy who was wearing a white t-shirt with blue letters that said Londonderry, Ireland. He kept playing the big broadcast pinball machine. He had lunch, but then just like wasn't leaving. He had driven there, so they knew he wasn't like waiting on a ride. And the boss tried to talk to him, but he wasn't really interested, but he did eventually leave. But just kind of a little weird situation.
Yeah, like weird vibes off of them.
Yeah, like someone, like it definitely stuck out to someone. On the same day at 2:35 p.m., Carol Ann Rapp, who was 7 years old, and Yvonne Rapp, who was 8, were walking home together from Campbell Grammar School. So the war brought many couples to California, and many set up housekeeping in Campbell. And when Carol Ann and Yvonne walked home from school, there were many kids who would walk with them. However, on November 2nd, they stayed after to help their teacher clean the blackboard, so it was mostly just them walking home alone. And while they're walking home, a car stopped and a man asked him if they could help him. He said he needed someone to help him babysit his little girl, and he offered to let them come play with her. So Carol Ann like immediately felt some bad vibes and grabbed Yvonne's hand and ran. So Yvonne saw him start driving back down the road toward Campbell Union High. At 3 p.m., Thora Chamberlain and her friends were walking to a football game between Campbell Union High, where they attended, and Washington High School of Centerville. So she was 14 years old. Her birthday is November 22nd, and she had brown hair and blue eyes. She was 5'2" and 120 pounds, and she was wearing a gabardine coat, a blue sweater, a white blouse, a red skirt, and 2 pairs of overlapping bobby socks, one red and one blue on each foot, and tan loafers, which just sounds like a very of the times outfit.
It does, yeah. I had to look up, I
Um,
was like, gabardine coat? What is that?
yeah, I'm like, I don't know what that is, but that and the sweater and then like the skirt, the bobby socks, like I got a
Yeah,
mental
it's
image
kind of like
here.
your stereotypical coat of the
Just like kind
time,
of an
honestly.
overcoat, like a little
Yeah.
bit longer kind of thing
Yeah.
I'm picturing. Okay. Thora was carrying her textbooks, a zippered binder, and a cowbell to ring in support of Campbell Union. Elaine Skimica and Catherine Ban saw the car first. It was a blue Plymouth coming up alongside the girls on Winchester Boulevard. So it's kind of creeping up alongside Thora and her friends. And the man stopped and tried to talk to them. He was wearing a Garrison hat and a U.S. Navy style white t-shirt with a purple heart and Londonderry, Ireland written in blue. Pinned on the shirt are several service medals, and he asked them for help, saying he needed help babysitting his sister's kid. So they originally said no, but he said that he would pay them and he only needed them for about 30 minutes and would drive them back for the game. So Thora agreed because she wanted to make the money and asked her friends to save her a seat at the game. At 3:30 p.m., Ella Ribble Boudreau, wife of San Jose physician, went to get her mail outside of her home in Saratoga, which was less than 6 miles southwest of Campbell. And Ella was locally famous as a musical composer. And as she's stepping out, a blue car speeds by, almost running her over. And she sees a teenage girl who's young with bouncy curls in her brown hair, wearing a red skirt and a blue sweater. And the girl's face is like pressed up against the window and she's like clawing at the glass. So clearly something is wrong here. She also sees a man with bushy hair driving with both hands on the wheel, and she would later say that she believes this was Thora in the car. So at 5 p.m., it's halftime at the game, and Thora's not come back yet. At 7:30 p.m., Frank and Lois Chamberlain are wondering where their daughter is. They knew that she would be later, but there had been no sign of her. So Lois calls Thora's friend Rita, and Rita says that Thora never came back to the football game. Rita told her about the man who offered her money to babysit, and she called more of her friends who all said the same thing. So Lois told Frank, and Frank called the chief of police. And less than half an hour later, Frank, Lois, and as many neighbors as they could round up joined them to search for Thora. On November 8th, Thora had been missing for 6 days. Frank, Lois, and their two other daughters, Cheryl, who was 18, and Carol, who was 5, were waiting by the phone, hoping to hear from her. And neighbors were still trying to help search for Thora. Frank and Lois have been hand delivering a statement to local newspapers, and they're asking for anyone who has any information to please call. So the FBI was soon going to be helping because they thought it was likely Thora could have been kidnapped and taken across state lines. So Earl E.J. Connolly worked top cases for the FBI. He helped work the John Dillinger case and Ma and Fred Barker. And in response to the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, Congress passed the Federal Kidnapping Act in 1932. And this granted the authority to the FBI to work kidnapping cases that cross state lines. So local police officers, county deputies, and state police had tried their best with this case, but they just really needed some help from the FBI.
So local police chief Robert Emmett O'Brien welcomed EJ in and showed him a man possibly worth looking into, and that's Thomas Henry McMonigle. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but
Looks
oh
like
well.
McMonigle to
McMonigle.
me.
Yeah, that's just a
McMonigle.
name I have.
McMonigle. Yeah.
McMonigle. Yeah. Those like double M's. I'm like, meh. So he was 31 years old and an ex-con from Illinois, and he was living with his wife in San Mateo. So O'Brien said it was suspected that he'd stolen a footlocker from a Navy guy that had clothes in it, just like the clothes Thora's friends saw the man wearing. And he had been seen in Campbell. So Thomas was born on May 28th, 1914, in Cobell, Illinois, and he was one of 8 children. He'd worked many jobs and had even gotten pretty good at boxing as a kid. And he had some minor crimes when he was a kid, like vagrancy and assault, but he had spent 8 years in prison for attempted rape. So some heftier charges as he got older.
Yeah.
And actually, after he got out of prison, he got in trouble for getting into a fight with his boss in San Mateo. And he also was booked in county jail for the alleged assault of a 14-year-old girl in San Bruno. So the only reason he wasn't doing time for that is because the girl's family chose not to proceed. They didn't want the publicity or for their daughter to have to testify. She was very young. They didn't want that, traumatic experience of having to testify in court and also like her name being out in public and all of that. This is the 40s, so it was way viewed differently.
Yeah.
Like,
Little different at that time.
so EJ puts a lot of his team on following Thomas and speaking to Thomas's employer. He also wanted to talk to the assault victim as well. And so EJ decided to interview Thora's friends to see if he can get any more information. And EJ showed them possible photos, and each girl actually picked out Thomas's picture as the guy. So independently, they all said, like, this looks like the guy who stopped us and was wanting to help him babysit. So at Thomas's job, his coworkers said he's kind of known to be trouble. They also said on November 3rd, Thomas returned to work as a laborer at Blair's construction yard in Burlingame. That's 35 miles north of Campbell. So Thomas was kind of a jokester at work, and he was a decent enough worker. He isn't really responsible, and he was a little off that day. And Thomas had actually taken off Monday to Friday without really saying anything before this. Like he just didn't come in. Um,
Yeah, just not gonna work this week.
just chose not to work. So his boss wasn't happy. However, his boss did let him keep his job and start working because he's like, he's decent enough and I need somebody to work. So whatever. They'd had trouble hiring at this construction yard, so he just kept him on for the time. And then also after this, he worked until November 6th and then like hadn't really come back to work after that. And he hadn't really been to work in a week again. So doing this again. And then he came back on November 6th and they said he was bragging about how he'd been with a 15-year-old girl. So kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um, Also on November 6th, Thomas was home in San Mateo after work, and he was there with his wife, Ina. They had a baby girl who was born on October 30th. So Thomas eats dinner and then leaves for the evening, which appears to be common. Like he would just get up and leave, whatever. And he said, I'm going to LA. And he says, I'll be back later. But it appears he kind of wished to leave California altogether, like he was going towards the bus station to leave. So, your wife gives birth a week prior and you're just like, bye.
I'm gonna go to California
Have
and go to
fun.
LA. Okay.
Alrighty. So they went to interview the 14-year-old girl, Andrea, who allegedly was assaulted by Thomas. Her family was not very thrilled about the interview, but they only did so because it was the FBI. Andrea said Thomas had pulled up alongside her as she was walking to school, and he said his sister needed a babysitter. He said he would pay her, so she got into the car, which was a blue Plymouth. They started driving and realized they weren't in San Bruno anymore. So she got really nervous and tried to jump out of the car. So he grabbed her arm and pulled her back in. He then stopped the car. And as Thomas let her go, Andrea jumped out of the car and ran. He ran after her, tackled her, and he put her a gun to her head and raped her. After a while, they heard another car coming and he ran off. So that is what happened with this 14-year-old girl, unfortunately, which is so tragic. So the FBI also interviewed Ina, if you remember, as Thomas's wife. She said the last time she saw him, he said he was going to LA. He tossed her the keys to the car, said he was taking the bus and left. She was like, I don't know. So the FBI left her a business card and just kind of left and was like, all right, well, if you know anything else, please call us.
Yeah.
Um, and the FBI did tow Thomas's car, so she has a newborn with no car, no husband, just
My
left to
gosh,
her
this
own
poor
devices.
lady.
I know. She's
Gosh.
just like, well then, okay.
Good luck.
Um, yeah. So they go to the bus stop to see if anyone remembers him, and two girls did remember him being like funny. Um, and they also remember him getting on a bus to LA. So they go to the bus stop in LA to see if people remember seeing him there. One girl says that he talked to them, and then he said his sister needed a babysitter. So clearly, this is a common trend with this. I don't want to call it a pickup line, but I like an opening line to try to get people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the best like terminology for that, but that's his MO. We'll say that.
Hmm.
But no one wanted to, so he left. They said he didn't get on another bus, but just kind of started walking down the road. So EJ is now calling other FBI offices in the West and Midwest to try to help keep a lookout for Thomas because he is from Illinois. And then their number one suspect is missing. Like no one, people saw him walking away from a bus station and no one's seen him since. On November 20th, they got a tip from a civilian that Thomas had been spotted in Cottage Hills, Illinois. So Thomas's family still lives in that area. So it kind of lines up with him being there. So they think it's kind of, there is some validity to this report. So agents on the ground do confirm it is Thomas McMonigle. EJ instructs them to follow Thomas, but not too close. He wants his every move to be watched, and they don't want to lose him, but they also don't kind of want to they don't want to spook him because they're like, Thora could still be alive and he could possibly still have Thora. Like, we want to be very careful because we don't know what happened to her. So, like, trail him, keep an eye on him, but don't like spook him.
Yeah. So at this point, the FBI has been trailing him for 3 days. He's just jumping from bar to bar, making new friends, like staying with them. So on November 24th, he leaves his sister Alma's house for the train station. He gets on the train headed towards Springfield, and he gets off the train at 2 p.m. and then tries to get in a taxi headed for Jacksonville. So he eventually gets into a fight with the taxi driver because he doesn't have any money for the taxi. So then he hitchhikes to try to get to Quincy. So Thomas makes friends at a restaurant and is like asking about work, and they say they might have a connection. He finds a local YMCA to stay at, and after Thomas leaves, the FBI agents check into his room. So they do find a Colt 32 gun. So Thomas worked for 1 day in Quincy, and then he takes the cash and starts hitchhiking again, and he hitchhikes his way slowly across the US back to LA. So on December 6th, Thomas is found being carried off a bus, but is barely conscious. So FBI agents arrest him and take him to the hospital, and it appears it was a possible overdose on sleeping pills. So he was trying to die by suicide, and they had to pump his stomach. So after he's released from the hospital, EJ brings in Thora's friends to see if they can identify Thomas out of a physical lineup. So Elaine and a few more friends pick out man number 5 in the lineup, who was Thomas McMonigle. On December 12th, Thomas was interrogated for 3 days but showed no signs of cracking, and EJ was still hopeful that Thora was still alive. So Thomas did have a history of sexual violence, but not murder that they knew of. They kept asking him about Thora, like where she is, and he eventually says she's dead. He said he thinks he killed her. He said he took her to Santa Cruz on Highway 17 and got off on Highway 1 near the San Mateo County line. He said he did this because Thora wasn't cooperating. He said he just wanted to scare her, so he reached into his glove box and got his Colt 32 gun. He said if he shot her, that's where it took place, which isn't really a confession, but is some kind of information, but isn't enough to
Mm-hmm.
like go off of.
Yeah.
So EJ tried to push him a little further, and Thomas said that he didn't want to shoot her. He said he kept driving with her in the car and drove north on Highway 1 to Devil's Slide. He got her body out of the car and rolled it off a cliff into the water. So Devil's Slide is a rugged ridge of rocks that hangs over the water, and it gets its name from the rocky edges that are prone to accidents. Thomas confirmed he shot her in the car, and he also said he found the bullet he shot her with. He found it in the wood doorpost between the front and rear seats, and he dug it out and took it home. He said he buried it in the backyard under a tree so that no one would ever find it. So after this statement, EJ tasks the agents with finding Thora's body. The prosecution would need it to help with their case against Thomas. On December 16th, agents dug up Thomas's backyard and found the bullet. So more agents are searching Devil's Slide. One agent found two pairs of red and blue socks that were stuck in the rocks about 2/3 of the way down. And EJ calls in the Navy to help search the water. So the Navy isn't able to help due to the rocky terrain and the rough waters. And they do confirm that if she had been thrown over, her body likely would not have survived more than 2 to 3 days. And EJ goes to Thora's home and sees her dresser full of socks similar to the ones that were found on Devil's Slide. Agents went to Thomas's job at the construction yard as well, and coworkers of his said that around the time Thora went missing, that he was working extra hard one day and they'd never seen him like work so fast. So they dug around where he was working and they found Thora's brown shoes, her school books, a zipper binder, and the cowbell she had planned to ring at the football game. They also found a footlocker that was marked as belonging to a U.S. military serviceman in his garage that many thought he had stolen. And they had also found a piece of Thomas's car upholstery that he had buried. So when EJ asked him why he had done it, Thomas alluded to the fact that he cut it out after Thora bled too much after being shot. And they also found pants that Thomas had worn that were buried as well. And he said they had too much blood on them. They showed him the pistol that they retrieved from his hotel room, and he said if he shot her, that that would have been the gun that he used. So basically confessing at this point.
Yeah, he just like he keeps like roundabout ways being like, well, if I did it, that's where I would have done it. So
Yeah, exactly.
on December 17th, Ina found out about Thomas basically confessing, and she was absolutely shocked. So their child had been born 2 days before Thora disappeared. So again, just 2 days after having a child.
That is crazy. Like, how are you even like how is that even something on like not that that would ever be something on somebody's mind, but especially at that point, like how?
Yeah, like because it's like they say it like changes you. I guess if you're a good person, it's supposed to change you. It doesn't change
Yeah.
everyone, I guess, but you know what I'm saying? So it's like crazy that it's like 2 days. So I think she's just like baffled that this could happen.
Yeah. And I do think too about like just thinking about like logistically like how busy you are like in those first couple of days, but I'm like, it was the 40s and this is a man, so it was probably
Yeah.
very different. This is the 40s, right?
Yes.
Okay.
46, I think.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, let me make sure.
And Thomas also said when his daughter was born, like he finally had something to live for. So he's saying this too, like making all these proclamations. And then 2 days later, he's murdering a girl. So the next day, Thomas is taken to the courthouse where he claims innocence. Reporters ask him questions, and he says he never confessed. He's now saying he was with Thora and took her to Devil's Slide, but that he fell asleep and he woke up to the sound of a gunshot and her being gone. So he doesn't know what happened. Like he was with her, but like he just woke up, she was gone, no clue. So on December 30th, the Santa Clara County Sheriff William Emig questions Thomas, but he's denying ever confessing to the FBI or knowing anything about Thora's disappearance. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So they moved Thomas to San Quentin, where he started changing his story constantly. So to anyone who would listen, he would say he shot her, but then he would say he choked her to death. And then he would say, I didn't do either of those things. Then he said he stabbed her, and he's just telling everyone a different story. Like he's like, I didn't do that. Oh, I shot her. I didn't do that. I choked her. No, 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 no. I didn't do either of those. I stabbed her. Like it's insane. So when Thomas goes to court, he denies again killing Thora and returns to the story that he woke up and she was gone. He enters the plea of not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity, and then the judge decides there's enough evidence to charge Thomas under the Federal Kidnapping Act and decides that the trial will be next month. So they're like, we can proceed with this. And on February 1st, Ina files for divorce and asks for custody of their daughter. And now Thomas is like, everything I said before is a lie. Listen to me. I'm telling you the truth now. Everything I've said before is a lie. Thora died after she jumped out of his car. So that's his story now.
And I'm
Again.
just like, when they do this, do they ever think that it's going to make them look less guilty when they change their
Yeah.
story nonstop? Like, do they ever think that like that's going to help them in any way?
Like, we're never
Like,
going to
what's the
believe you now to
point?
be like, that was all a lie. This is the truth.
Exactly.
It's like, we're not going to believe you. You've told 7 stories of what happened now.
Yeah.
And I feel like also if that did happen where you randomly had a 14-year-old in your car and you woke up to the sound of a gunshot and then she was gone, you would never ever allude to the fact that you maybe stabbed, choked, shot, and you
Yeah,
wouldn't run across the country. Like,
exactly.
so the trial begins on February 4th. Frank and Lois Chamberlain testify and talk about Thora. They say she was a quiet, home loving child. She was a regular at their church and she was just gracious, loving, and honest. She had been learning the piano. And Frank talks about the day Thora went missing and what she was wearing. They showed some of the items they found that Thomas had buried, and Frank was able to identify most as belonging to his daughter. The only things he didn't like positively identify was her shoes and socks, but he was just like, she had a pair just like that. I just can't tell you 100% definitively those are hers, but she had pairs just like it. As the trial continues, they present the details about how Thomas has beat up his former boss. And a few days later, Thomas says he wants to change his plea to guilty. He says it's time to tell the truth. So he tells his whole story about everything that happens. It's typed out. It's time to sign it. He looks at the papers and refuses to sign. So just wasting more people's time. And on February 17th, Thomas' lawyers try to get a reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. So they said Thora could have thrown her own socks off the cliff at Devil's Slide and then ran away. They say the blood on the pants was not proved to be Thora's blood. They also said in his first confession, it showed he did not intend to kill Thora, so he shouldn't be charged with first-degree premeditated murder. So still murder, but just not first-degree premeditated murder.
Also, why does it matter what this man said in his first confession when there's been 8 of them? Like, how are
Yeah.
you going to be like, well, according to this one, I think it was.
I
But
feel like his lawyers knew it was a lost cause and they were like, I
what
don't
can
know.
we
What
try?
can we
Just
say? She threw her own socks off and then ran away. I don't
like
know.
teenage girls do all the time, just
There
throwing their
is
socks
blood
and
on the
shoes off the
pants,
cliff.
but we just haven't proved it's her blood.
Oh my God.
So his lawyers are trying to do their jobs with obviously lost cause. And Thomas now proceeds to start telling a different story again. He now says her death was accidental. He said they were playing a game and she jumped out of the car and she hurt herself and he got her back in the car. He tried to get her to a hospital, but she died before he could. And he said the gunshot in the car was due to an accidental shooting in the summer of last year, not this day, of last year. And he said that the socks found on Devil's Slide were planted there by the FBI. And he said he left Thora's body on the side of the road, covered it with leaves, said a prayer, and drove off, and then promises to take them to her shallow grave the next day.
I cannot with this man
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. So, um, and some news that's probably not shocking to you. The next day, he refuses to take them to this quote unquote shallow grave. And he said, I'm just concerned for my safety. I don't want a mob out there to come and like attack me on the way. Just bullshit, basically. So the jury begins deliberations, and of course, they find him guilty of first degree murder, and he is given the death penalty. So another body was found near Devil's Slide, and they originally thought it could be Thora, but it actually ended up being Dorothy Rose Jones, or possibly last name Woods. I've seen it reported two different ways, so I'm not sure. Thomas did admit to killing her, and her body was positively identified by friends, and friends had seen Thomas and Dorothy together. Thomas was never formally charged with her murder, and it's uncertain if he changed his story multiple times, like he did with Thora. Like, I don't really know if he just confessed and then took it back a million times. But unfortunately, I really couldn't find anything further on Dorothy, besides that she was a waitress. That is about it, and that her body was found. He also did later claim to have killed 11 people, but that's also never been verified. So in May, Thomas is trying to study law to like try and find a loophole into his conviction. He wants to like appeal and win it. And then on May 26th, he went before the federal court to present the appeal that he wrote. He said the FBI used intimidation and violence to win his confession and conviction, but the Supreme Court of California had already like rejected this appeal, so it's really not going anywhere. Also in this appeal, he's asking for an eye exam because he believes he's going blind. Don't know why. He says I'm going blind. So,
And what does that have to do with appealing this conviction?
don't
Like,
know. But that's
I
part of his
couldn't.
appeal. He's like, I need an eye exam. I'm going blind. I know I'm on the death penalty and it's the 40s and this is gonna move pretty quick. But
So he's like, "Well, what can I try to?"
yeah. So he was
Wow.
granted this eye exam in June, and a doctor confirmed he was not going blind. And around this time, he did win a 90-day stay of his death penalty. And it's probably his last chance at a stay of execution. And then again, if he does win any appeals for Thora's murder, he's going to immediately go on trial for Dorothy Jones. So either way, he's not going anywhere. But that was the last like stay of execution that he won. So on February 20th, 1948, in San Quentin, Thomas is set to die at 10 a.m. by gas chamber. He ate a breakfast of ham, eggs, and a glass of fruit juice. And shortly after 10:14 a.m., Thomas Henry McMonigle was dead. But before he died, he'd slipped a note to the warden, and it said, quote, I, Thomas Henry McMonigle, in the last testimony to the people, declare that I did not shoot Thora Chamberlain, and I did not throw her body over a cliff. I never made any confession that I shot Thora Chamberlain in Santa Cruz County. So interesting things about this note is he doesn't say he didn't kill her, and he just says I didn't shoot her in this county.
That's very interesting.
So I think some people, not a lot of people, but people are like, but then it's like this note is the. So that is the murder of Thora Chamberlain, and her body has still not been found to this day. And this is also the murder of Dorothy Rose Jones, or possibly Woods, and possibly 11 others, if his confessions were correct.
She's just so sad, especially the ones where like their bodies are never found and
Hmm.
their families never have. I mean, not that that like gives you closure, but just that never knowing, you know?
Yeah, it it sucks, and especially having such an unreliable narrator as the
Yeah,
murderer, where you can't even be like, why did you do this? Because he's just telling like seven different stories, and you're like, I can't believe anything you're saying, and like,
exactly. Exactly.
why? It's just so sad. And again, this is from the 40s, so there wasn't a lot, and like most of this comes from the book, and the book was a little hard to go through because there were a lot of like quotations and like
Hmm.
talking, which I know probably were not exactly verbatim what people said.
Yeah,
So,
we're a little
um,
embellished to fit the
yeah,
story.
so,
Yeah.
but that is like where most of like this story comes from. It's just that book, and that's what a lot of articles reference. And um, it's just so sad.
Hmm. And I feel like too, with this being in the 40s and, obviously not having the kind of like forensics that we have now, like I feel like this man has probably did this many more times, like he confessed. Like I don't doubt him at all. I don't know if it's the exact number that he said, but I don't doubt that this wasn't his first time, especially seeing how many girls he like tried to pick up using the same line. Um, wouldn't be surprised
Hmm.
at all if he has done this multiple times and got away with it.
Yeah, and I mean, he was only 31 in the year that Thora went missing, and he'd already spent
Hmm.
8 years in prison for rape. He had raped another girl, Andrea, in
Hmm.
San Bruno. This happened. Like
Yeah.
he is not having a good track record, and who knows what he did in between all these times, you know? Like
Yeah.
how
Absolutely.
many could have been like Andrea, where they were like, we cannot have our daughter go through this because
Hmm.
that is so traumatic for her and it's the 40s and we don't have therapy to help her get through it or the acceptance of society on what
Yeah.
happened to you. Like,
Like we're still blaming her like she had anything to do with this and it was in any way her fault.
yeah,
Yeah, that's very sad.
yeah,
But good that we can cover one that is not covered very often. So I like when we're able to
yeah.
do that.
I hadn't heard of this one.
Mm-mm.
I have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, and so I went
Mm-hmm.
and I've gotten a few true crime books from there. So ones like
Mm-hmm.
pop up
Yeah.
suggested. So I was like, this one looks interesting. This one haven't
Yeah.
heard of it. So
Yeah, definitely let us know if you've heard of this one or, any similar ones. That being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is if you work with me, don't listen to this anymore. No, I'm just kidding. So I had to go on a work trip, as I said, and I was training a new person, but into the area I went, is around like it's just on the Kentucky side of Cincinnati. And so because it's such a long drive, I ended up leaving on Sunday. And because of that, Kevin decided to come with me because it was like I have the hotel,
Hmm.
my meals are reimbursed. So
Yeah.
really all we're having to pay for is whatever Kevin ends up buying for himself.
Exactly.
So it was nice. We got to leave Sunday and like head up there. Kevin got to try my Indian restaurant and he
Oh,
liked it. He's not
exciting.
much of like a food person. Like I don't feel like Kevin like get so much joy out of eating, but I feel like
Yes.
for Kevin, food is like I have to eat food to survive.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he
It's
doesn't,
just nourishment. It's not like
yeah.
a pleasure experience like it is for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, exactly. But he even said it was really good. Like he talked
Good.
about how good it was. So he enjoyed it. He made his last like for a couple meals. I devoured
Of
mine in
course.
one sitting. I mean, what can I do? But he said it was really good. And then we also got to go to a Reds game because they just happened to play on a Monday night. And we happened to go to just an amazing game that was like high scoring and crazy things happening with like an in the park home run and like a crazy catch to prevent a home run for the other team. And it was just a really good game. The energy
Hmm.
for a Monday night was top tier. Only disappointment was the last time we went to a Reds game, I had these absolutely amazing buffalo chicken fries. I went to have them again and they were not good.
Oh,
So
that's
I
very
don't
sad.
know. I don't know what changed. The fries weren't seasoned very well. And I remember last time, like the guy was letting me pick what I wanted on it. So I could kind of like
Hmm.
build my own versus this was just like what it came with. So there was no blue cheese. There was no
Yeah,
any of that. It just
that's
fell flat.
disappointing.
Fell
Yeah.
flat. But you win some, you lose some. If
That's
that's
true.
the only loss, I guess it's not too bad.
At least your Indian restaurant was good, you know?
Yeah, at least it's holding up. It's holding
Yes.
up. So yeah, so we got to come back yesterday too, and it's just nice to kind of have a travel companion too, because most of the time on these
Yeah.
trips, it's just me alone, like staring at the walls and all that. So it was kind of nice that he got to come along and he also works remote, so he can just work from the hotel
Hmm.
and stuff. So that
Yeah,
was really nice.
definitely.
But yeah, so that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what's your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that this week we got some new flowers and got some new stuff planted around the house. And last year Andrew had like this big project where he like dug out some like flower beds of like the side of our stairs and like most of that stuff came back, but then a few things didn't. So we got some new things to, replace those. And Millie was so excited because we've been asking her for weeks like what kind of flowers she wanted, and she's like, I want yellow and purple flowers. I want yellow and purple flowers. So I'm like, okay. And so we're at Lowe's looking at the flowers and I think they're pansies. But they're like purple and yellow. Like like one flower has
Mm-hmm.
like purple and yellow and she like ran right to him and was like, "Here they are. Here's my purple and yellow flowers." I'm
I
like,
told you about
"Okay."
it.
Whatever you say. So we got those and we got like a bunch of other flowers and I got some pink and like a purpley blue hydrangea. So they're super pretty. Millie keeps saying they're blue and I say they're purple and it's a constant, battle. But it's like that in between that it's like it's kind of
Yeah, it
both
could be
right. But
either.
Yeah, but they're super pretty, and we're trying to get some more things for like the front of our house too, because kind of slowly making everything how we want it, and it's not really
Get you
deep
that
enough to
curb
like
appeal.
exactly. It's hard because like we have these like big flower beds in front of the house, but they're not like deep enough to like plant stuff in the ground because it's like there's like a tarp and then like mulches on top. So we'd have to kind of like dig all that up and like till the ground that hopefully would even be able to plant something
Mm-hmm.
there. So we just did like pots like in front of the house. But I want to do some like metal flowers, like those like kind of like decorative you know,
Oh yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
metal, yeah, but just a few, like not too many. And I got, how did I forget?
Your
The
bird bath.
my bird bath. The top of the
The
perk of the week is my bird
second I saw
bath.
your face, I was like, it's the bird bath.
It's so beautiful and it perfectly matches my front door, which is just lovely. Like I love that
Mm-hmm.
it came out that way. But no birds have come in my bird bath yet. So if you know how to
Mm-hmm.
get birds to my bird bath, it's very shallow, so it's not like super deep because I read that can be a problem. I did read they might want like a rock in the middle to like perch on, so I might try to do that. But if
Yeah.
you have any other suggestions, and
They
it's not
probably just
super
have to
hot
build
out.
trust, you know? They got to
Yeah.
build some trust.
But like it's like 10 feet away from the bird feeder that they eat on all the time. So I'm like, but why won't you
Yeah.
come to the bird bath? It's right
They don't
here.
need baths yet, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, because someone said too, like they don't really come a whole lot until it's like hot, because like they don't really play in it that like they don't like bathe in it that much. They like drink it, but they're like I guess they don't do it a lot unless it's super hot, and it's still very mild. So maybe when it gets warmer. But let me know if you have any suggestions. But it looks really pretty, and I'm hoping the birds will come enjoy the bird
Mm-hmm.
bath. I don't know if Millie or I are more excited about it. Both of us are constantly in the window seeing if there are any birds in the bird bath, and there have not been, but.
One day it's gonna happen, you know?
Yes, and I will be very excited about that. But yeah, that is my perk of the week is my little outdoor area coming along with my flowers and especially my new bird bath.
Well, if you want to tell us your thoughts on this story, if you know other books on Kindle Unlimited about cases that have never been covered that you've heard, let me know. I'll check them out. Um, if you want to talk about, oh my God, what did I just say? Your bird baths, your curb appeal, your work trips, your Indian food,
Yes.
your things that were, you remember them being so good and then they were a miss, or your things
Hmm.
you remember being really good that were a hit. I have both of
Yes.
those. So life is all about balance. You know where to do that. It's in the show notes. But our most important platform is patreon.com/caffeinated crimes. So if you want like extra episodes, if you want ad-free episodes, if you want our Discord, pin and a sticker, all of that can be accessed at our Patreon. Um, we have an exciting bonus coming up in April that I finally decided on. And then in May, we're coming to CrimeCon. Have we talked about
Yes.
that? We talked about it so much in September, and then we haven't talked about it again.
Hmm.
We're going to CrimeCon last week
Literally
of
next month, like
next
just a
month.
few
Yeah.
weeks from now. Yeah.
We will be at CrimeCon, and then we'll probably do the same thing we did last time, where we just kind of record and give you an extra long bonus. Maybe we'll try to cut it down a little bit, not be so long, but we'll give you a nice little bonus where we kind of just record some little recaps of kind of what's happening, kind of
Hmm.
just fill you guys in.
A lot of
But
very
yeah.
good guests so far that are going to be
Mm-hmm.
speaking, so pretty excited about that.
Yes. Yeah. I'm pretty excited.
And as always, we appreciate any reviews that you can leave us anywhere. Apple Podcast is great because it kind of boosts our ratings a little bit. I think Spotify has a rating system. YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Like anywhere that you can just like give us some stars or some comments or some
Mm-hmm.
just, putting it out into the world that you enjoy us, and that helps us get seen by more people like you who can enjoy us and send us to more crime cons all over the world because that's all our whole goal. That's just what we're going for here. So.
Yep.
We really appreciate it if you could do that for us.
Yes, that would be amazing. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.